game.
And this is our Shelf of Shameful Opportunity.
We're also SpielMill, by the way.
Oh, yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah. We can leave it like that. That's fine. So, this is we just did a Shelf of Shameful Opportunity. And we're recording another one because we played so many new games since our last one that we wanted to split it into 2 videos now.
Technically 3, because we've got 4 we're not going to talk about today.
That's right. So when this is our video where if you don't know, we talk about games that we get to the table for the first time and what we think of them. That's as simple as that. Now, I will say we tend to like games. We like games, obviously. We tend to like games more than we dislike games.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, some games we're like, that's okay, it's okay, but we're not going to be super aggressively negative about a game because somebody put the time in to design it. Yeah. It made it to market. Most of them are going to be not that bad. Maybe not for us, but we're also pretty good at this point about buying games that fit our interests. Yeah,
for the most part. So the first game on our table for this video is Black Forest from Uwe Rosenberg.
Yes, yes. So I have mixed feelings about this.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, I love it, but it kind of drove me a little bit crazy. So it has a similar mechanism to Orienberger Canal where there's a wheel, and as the wheel turns, and Glass Road, the wheel turns, as the wheel turns, right? The number of resources that you have changes. So if you move your wheel, you suddenly lose one of every resource that was on one side of it. Now you gain one on the other side, and the side that you're gaining on is the side of resources that are really difficult to get. Right? They're more complicated. They're produced goods instead of raw goods. Right? But you still lose one of everything, and it broke my brain trying to calculate to make sure that I had enough resources to do what I wanted to do.
Yep. And what was tough about this was in Orienberg Canal, you decide when you turn your wheel. In this, if there's room, you have to turn it.
Yeah, and the other thing that made it really complicated is movement is one of the resources. It's one of the high value resources. So in order to get movement, you had to lose some of your raw goods, which kind of makes sense, but it's still like you could get backed into a corner where you had the resources to do what you wanted to do, but you had to get to another village to do it. To get to another village, you had to move your wheel, and suddenly you don't have the damn resources anymore in it. Oh my God.
That was hard.
Oh, made me crazy.
That happened to me multiple times for sure.
That being said, there's a lot to love about this game.
I really loved it. I didn't
because you won all the games.
No, I didn't. You won the last game, but
did I? Okay.
I didn't mind the wheel thing so much. I think it's neat. I thought it was neat in Glass Road. I thought it was neat in Orienberg Canal. I really like the wheel.
I liked it in the other games. For some reason in this one, I just found it a little bit frustrating.
I think it might be the fact that it automatically turns on you.
No, you know what it is? You've got 2 wheels.
You do have 2 wheels.
Which is a lot to think about. And so you're like, okay, I think I know what I need. I I got to turn one of the wheels, and now I don't have what I need. Exactly.
So it's tricky, and but it was really fun, and I liked the way this game, more than some other Uwe games, used the game board, where you had to travel from village to village to do different actions, because each village had different actions, and it was modular, so every game's different which actions are where. So that was neat, I think. I like that a lot.
I did too. I thought the buildings were really fun. Yeah. You've got a whole lot of buildings to choose from, but they're also very nicely organized. So you think about a game like Agricola, where you've just got 6,000 cards and you got what you got. Here, the 40 or some buildings were organized by what they do. So if you know that you need something that is going to help you produce water, those are in one row. Right.
There's a little variation from game to game in the buildings because you flip them over to the B side. But for the most part, they roughly do the same things from game to game, which with somebody like myself who has brain fog due to illness, that was actually helpful.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of buildings. You'd have to play this a lot to get super, super comfy with.
But like you said, they're super organized. So it's like, I need something that produces water for me. Well, there's a water category, and there's 3 buildings that produce water.
So what I mean by that is that the novelty is going to, it's going to feel like fresh and novel. It's not going to be like, ugh, same buildings again.
Oh,
Ugh,
yeah, yeah.
I'm bored with these. Like it's
Right.
the same 4 buildings every time. We know what they do, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, there's 40
so
of them,
many
or
of them.
35 of them or something.
There's so many of them. They're nicely organized, but you could do a lot of different strategies on these.
Yep.
So it feels to me like a pretty mature Uwe game where he's taken a lot of the mechanisms he's been working on in the last couple years and puts them into one game, which is what he tends to do, right?
With a certain style mechanism, then he does like 4 games based on it.
Right. And sort of the last one or the ones on the tail end tend to be the more fully formed. And I feel like this is sort of, so I don't know if this is going to be the last one that he does with these mechanisms, but to me, this feels like a really mature game, you know, on the tail end of him exploring things like the wheel, right? I also really like you said, the use of the game board where there are different locations and they are going to be in a different configuration every time. And you have to pay to move to get there. There's also occupations, which are come out sort of randomly at different times. And when they come out, or I should say the occupations, you pay a lot of resources, like a lot. Sometimes it's like full, you have to be maxed out on something to do it. But then you get a lot in return. And so those are kind of a neat little thing as well, because you're not going to do that many occupations unless you're Jane. Most people are going to do 1 or 2 unless they're really focused on occupations one game. But again, that idea that there's this thing you can do, but it's going to cost you so many resources. It's going to take a couple turns to build up to it. But then the payoff is great. And so you can either chug along, you know, slow and steady wins the race and not do the occupations, but be doing sort of regular actions. Or you can save up and like go for broke and do the occupation and get like, boom, a big reward. And just it's like different ways of playing. But I like that. There's a couple of options for how
occupations
to do it.
were tricky, I thought, because
jobs.
you got a big reward, but you had to spend a lot of one thing to get it, and then often you needed that thing back, so you had to go get that thing again.
Yeah, and God forbid your wheel moves the turn before you need to get that.
Yeah, so it's very tricky, but it's very fun, and I think I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
Art is great. I really like thematically, it looked really nice.
Yeah, it really did. It was wonderful.
So
despite my frustration with
some
that damn wheel.
Yeah. But overall, thumbs up on Black Forest.
Yep.
So next up, we have a puzzle game. This is a more involved one from Post Curious, and that is Threads of Fate. And I mean, Post Curious, the thing about Post Curious is, first of all, their games for the most part are not for beginners. Not at all.
Nope.
Not remotely. Like, if you're not a veteran at doing puzzle games, don't even bother. It's too hard. They're very hard. Now, they do have a good hint system, but they're just too hard for, I think, a lot of people, probably. We do a lot of puzzle games, and we struggle on some of these puzzles a lot.
We also made the mistake. So they're long. Each episode, if a box has like 4 envelopes in it, 4 like episodes, each one is 3 hours minimum.
Yeah.
And so for us to find 3 hours where we can sit at the table, sometimes we were breaking them into 2 different sessions. It sometimes took us like a week to get through, like from when we first sat down to when we finished, and we would kind of forget things. And so that's the other sort of trick with this, is you have to be able to sort of have some consistency, or take really good notes.
Yeah, because I will say this without spoiling anything, the game uses callbacks to things that happen in earlier episodes of the puzzle. So you have to retain some memory of how you got to where you are. And that's tricky, because then we would totally forget, like, oh, how did we do that again? What did it mean? Wait, what? Ah!
And there were some things where we had really good notes. We had a couple of ciphers that we kept, so we were able to use those when they were reintroduced. Fantastic. But there was at least one which we used multiple times, and we just never wrote it down. Every single time we're like, oh, which one was it? Let's go figure it out again. Just stupid. Like, why didn't we write it down the second or third time? But, so if you're going to play a Post Curious game, make sure you take really good notes and you keep them.
And try not to have too big of gaps between plays.
Yeah.
That was where the problem came in.
That being said, these people are geniuses.
They are. They do some
Holy
really
cow.
out of the box things in their puzzle games. And you have to think out of the box to solve them.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to leave the room, possibly the house, to figure it out.
That was the
That's
one
all
thing.
I'll say.
I will say that was the one thing I did not like.
Yeah.
In it. There was one puzzle where it required you go above and beyond. I'm going to say it required you go outside, which just not everybody's going to be able to do that.
So it's a slight spoiler, but yeah.
That being said, I loved this. I love the stories. I think they are the masters of the puzzle games.
Yep.
They are brilliant. The stories are great. They're incredible. They're just incredible.
I just realized I was hearing a noise, and it's your little bells on your sweater. We're so married. So anyway, sorry about that. But I really love their games. They are my favorite games. I think if you're looking for a more introductory level thing from Threads from Post Curious, the tarot card one, Light in the Mist, was a little simpler. But I would still do other like Deadbolt Mystery or something else first and get used to solving these kind of puzzles before jumping into a Post Curious.
Yeah, this is like PhD level puzzles. if you're into puzzle games and you've played a bunch, this is, although again, Threads of Fate I think you could pick up and do.
Light in the Mist.
Light in the Mist.
Yeah, so
Light in the Mist.
So just
right. Not Threads of Fate. Not Threads of Fate.
Just to be clear, very good.
Very good.
Threads of Fate is very good.
Yeah.
Like, it's complicated, but it's very, very good.
I think their first one might have been a little bit easier. I think they're getting a little bit more.
They're getting a little tougher as they come up with new. I mean, I'm impressed that they can keep coming up with new puzzle ideas that are ingenious and fresh and fun.
What was the first one?
Emerald Flame?
Emerald Flame, yeah. I think that, although also not super easy. So if you've never played a puzzle game, maybe not where to start. But
no, there were 3-dimensional stuff happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you got to be prepared for that. So
yeah, I really love it. Drew on things in the real world too.
Yeah.
Was the other thing that was really cool to me, is that it wasn't just a made-up world. Not that there's anything wrong with a made-up world. That's super cool. But I thought that it was really interesting too, that this one actually connected to real life things. We actually had to get on the internet and look some things up.
Yep. That reminds me a little bit of Detective did that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah. So love it. Highly, highly recommend if you are up for the challenge.
All right.
I don't know. Maybe some people are smart enough they could jump right in.
Yeah, there's better people at this than we are. But all right. Well, next up in our games is a little roll and write game, print and play, I believe. And that's called Around the World in 10 to 15 minutes. Now, I was pretty excited about this because I didn't love Around the World in 80 Days, the board game.
Yeah.
I really want a good Around the World in 80 Days kind of game. I don't think this was it.
No, I don't think it was it either.
It's okay.
Yeah, it was okay. And I think if you...
Ish.
Yeah, ish. Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's definitely not good in my perspective. Like, and I also played it solo after we played it together, and I thought the solo was not as good as playing it together.
Oh, okay.
So, but it does have, when you play it together, one nice thing about this is it would be good for traveling because there's no dice needed. And there's no cards, so it's not a flip and write, it's not a roll and write, it's a decide and write. And you literally, there's like 2 or 3 actions, there's like 3 actions you can do on your turn. And you just announce which of the 3 actions you're going to do. And then you get to do it twice, and everybody else gets to do it once. And then it rotates who the active player is, and they do the same. So it's kind of interesting how that works out. And I do think that's a clever way to drive the game. And so I think multiplayer works well for that. The solo player, you just rolled dice and then it told you what options you had and you did it. And to be honest, I think both the multiplayer and solo player suffer from this a little, where you knew you had a fair amount of time and you just kind of could go about doing your business. Now I think in multiplayer somebody could speed up and finish the game early on you.
Which
which
you
makes
did
it
to
a
me.
little more interesting.
Yeah.
So, but it is a little cutthroaty that way. So
Yeah. I felt like there wasn't a ton of decision space in this either. It was pretty obvious what you were going to do, right? Or what you had to do. And the whole, like, you had to pick from the 3 actions, and, you know, the main player could do it thrice, 3 times, and the following player could do it twice. There wasn't a lot of tension in that, because I knew that Jane was going to have to do, I forget what the actions were at this point, but Jane was going to have to do one of them as well as me, right? So I could do this other one, and I knew she would really probably have to pick that other one. So let's say it was like store up something to move, right? So there wasn't a lot of tension in that. That being said, I thought it was kind of pleasant, and I do enjoy games that are about going around the world.
Yeah.
So the theme was nice, and it did have a little bit of the like bonus.
I mean, like I said, traveling, you're in a car or something, don't need dice, you don't need anything but your sheet and a pencil.
Yeah.
So it's got that going for it.
Yeah.
Or if like
On
us, you put it in a
or,
sleeve and a marker, whatever. But like it's easy to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah,
it does have that going for it. So
yeah, it's not terrible. It's not one I would say like just don't bother people. It's not that.
And when I say in a car, not while you're driving, people.
I think it has a place.
Yeah,
you know,
it has a place. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not the worst game, that's for sure. All right. Next up, we have a fun game.
Clans of Caledonia.
Woo!
This was good.
Great.
Oh my gosh. We loved this.
Yeah, we really enjoyed this. Thematically, we love these resource management games. This one has good, clever mechanisms. It's got a good theme.
Yeah,
the power went out on us in our first game. We played it by candlelight, and that was fun.
Yeah. I loved it. So basically you've got a board with a bunch of different things on it that you could take from your player board and put on the main board. So like you could have sheep, you could have cattle, and then you could turn those raw materials into cheese, bread, whiskey. Oh, wheat was one of the other raw ones. So you pay for each of the improvements you're going to make. So like wheat was very expensive, 18 gold, whereas a sheep was one of the cheaper ones at 8. You pay, and then you pay for the space you're putting it into. But then let's say you put out a cow, it's going to produce milk every turn, right? If you put out a whiskey distillery, if you've got wheat, every turn or every round, it's gonna make whiskey, right? So I love that. I guess it's really engine building, right? I love that engine building, and there's a lot of different choices to make. We played, I don't know how many games we played, but I think I did a different strategy in each one on what I was going to build up. One of the games I spent that 18 gold to put out wheat farms early, so then I could produce whiskey, which was worth a lot throughout the game. I mean, it really, really fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think, what can I say? I don't know. It's just, it's enjoyable.
Yeah. One of the other neat things about it too is that the scoring is you have these tiles, right, that you can take, and when you fulfill the order, so the idea is you're selling to the market, right? So let's say you sell, 3 whiskey barrels and a cheese and a sheep. You might get indigo and coin and tobacco, right? And then you don't actually get those. Well, you do. You get like
they're on your tiles.
Yeah, they're on your tiles, right? But however many indigo you get, you move the marker forward. And then at the end of the game, whatever sold the least is worth the most. And so if you've collected a whole bunch of tobacco and you've moved that really far, it's not going to be worth as much as the indigo, which you have less of, but that could be a really high scoring strategy if nobody's getting a lot of cotton or indigo.
Yeah, so if you manage to get the only few indigo that are sold, you get the most points for them, so you can max out. That's a whole max min thing going on. Really fun. The expansion was just on Kickstarter, so there might be a late pledge option for that. But I really enjoyed this game, and definitely we've been playing it on BGA since we played it in person. And now I know what I'm doing because I played it once on BGA before and I had no clue. So it was really nice to know what I'm doing now. So
yeah, so that's a winner for us.
Yep.
We played it because we wanted to know whether or not we wanted to back the expansion, and that was auto back.
Yep.
Such a good game.
So, all right, Clans of Caledonia.
Yeah.
Next up, we have another roll and write print and play game. This one's called Tiny Mini Golf. This is another one that I'd probably just put in the okay category. I think the idea is really good. And the idea is that you each have like a grid, and on your turn you roll dice, and depending on the dice roll, you can draw obstacles to create a mini golf hole. But then to see who created the best mini golf hole, you trade sheets. So you rotate sheets if you have a lot of players. However it goes, we had 2 players, so we traded sheets. And then you're trying to score as quickly as possible on the other person's mini golf hole that they created. And whoever mini golf hole scores
The least.
the highest, the worst score, the worst you hold out
Takes
in the last
most shots to get there, right?
Wins because they created the hardest mini golf hole.
That's right. That's right.
And it's such a clever thing. I just feel like it's just a step. It just needed like one more step to make it more interesting. One more mechanism, or maybe like I don't know, because I felt that like we played it, and we did only play it once, so we want to caveat, but and we tied. And I think that's going to happen a lot in this game.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say about this is I struggled with visualizing the impact of the obstacles that I was putting on my thing.
You got to think about it geometrically.
Yeah, so like if the ball hits it, which way is it going to go, right? I really struggled with that. And then it's not just the one you're placing. You have to think about, well, I'm going to get to place 4 more. So, I want to place this in a way that makes sense for the next 4 moves. I don't know. I don't know. It was too much for me. I found that.
It may not work for everybody. So you have to have spatial sort of.
Yeah. I think it worked better for you than it did for me.
But we tied.
We did.
So.
What does that say? It says I lucked out is what it says. But I found it to be a type of intellectual activity I did not enjoy. Like, I really love a crunchy brain burner, but not that kind. It was frustrating to me. It was pure luck. At some point I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna put it there. I don't know. And so I think it kind of depends on what your specialties are and what you enjoy. I think some people would really enjoy it.
I think though, to be a really good game, I would rather have one sheet where you draw 3 holes and then you figure out partially because the 1 hole, the odds of tying are really high.
Yeah.
Where I think 3 holes would dissipate that out a little bit.
If you could do 3 holes at once where you could decide, okay, you didn't have to do them in order, all 1, all number 2, all number 3, where you could take your obstacles and spread them out so that you could, if one doesn't work on one, that way you could do 1 hole that you just put all your extra crap that didn't work on the 3rd and then built out the other 2. I think that would be a little better.
Could be interesting, I think.
Yeah.
So I think this could use a little more development with the idea, because I think it's a great idea. And there was a game on Kickstarter recently, I think it was Kids Table Board Games, that had a game with a very similar idea where you built a dungeon and then other people had to go through your dungeon.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I don't think we backed it, but I really considered it because I think the idea is fantastic.
Yeah.
And can be really effective and really fun.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
But this is a print and play version of it, and it just didn't work as well for me. So.
Yep, agreed. All right, it is 600 degrees in here, so I apologize for opening my seltzer in the middle.
All right, so next up on our list is a 2-player game called Sky Team. What did we think of Sky Team?
I think we really enjoyed it.
I think I did. Yeah, I think I don't like it as much as like Sail.
Yeah.
Comparing it to another 2-player game where you have to manipulate a vehicle. I think I like Sail a lot better.
Yeah, I think I like Sail better too.
But I've played Sail a lot more.
You have.
But I just think like the mechanisms of Sail felt a lot more. I'm not sure what the word is. This was interesting because in Sky Team, it's like dice worker placement, kind of, right? You get dice values and you place them in different spots, and they do different things. And it just felt a little more
I feel
abstractified.
Yes, because I feel like in Sail, you're literally moving your boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do it wrong, you're going to run into the rocks.
Right.
Like, you can literally see the path you're doing. This is not so much about...
Yeah, you got it right. Yeah.
Right. There's no path that you're on. You're just getting planes out of your way so you don't run into them, which is a good thing, right? And then using dice to get your plane to come in right for the landing. And so it's just a very different feel.
So I liked it, but I didn't like it a huge amount. I liked it enough, though, that we're going to play it more.
Yeah, for sure. And it's on BGA, which is nice, so we can play it on BGA.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to some of the different...
Yeah, we did a couple of them. We didn't do a huge amount of the modules that are different scenarios, different airports you're landing at with different goals and stuff like that, and different variables you have to consider.
Yeah.
Those are interesting and add a lot of variability to the game, so that is there. Replayability is there.
I will say that the one other thing about Sky Team, and I think I ran into this in another game, and I can't remember what it was, but on BGA recently, is where you have turns where you might just not be able to use your dice, right? They don't work. And especially if you're playing the co-pilot in Sky Team, because so there's a pilot and there's a co-pilot, and they have different mechanisms that they're in charge of. And for the co-pilot, I think things had to go in a particular order. More things had to go in a particular order. And so you could just really have unusable dice.
I do think, I mean, there are dice mitigations. I do think there's a push your luck element to that, where it's like, if the more you push off something that needs a very specific dice roll, the harder the game's going to be for
absolutely.
You. Because you're pushing your luck.
Right. And I do actually, again, I like that element. That is a decision space I really like, is deciding what to do now and what to do later. Because you always want to do everything and you can never do everything. So do you go for like the one that's the big payoff now, which is always much more exciting, or do you do the responsible thing and set yourself up for later success? And I never want to do that.
Right.
I don't care about later me. Later me is later me's problem.
Later me.
Yeah. Right now, I want the dopamine. And so, but that's kind of that tension is actually really fun in games.
That's true.
And it definitely has that in this.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's Sky Team. And again, I think we liked it. We definitely really liked it. I think there was a lot of hype around it, so we weren't sure.
I'm not sure it lives up to the hype.
Yeah.
I thought some of the hype was overblown. But.
I think so too. Or we're not gamers that think, I don't know what I'm trying to say. We just have a different opinion than some people.
Yeah, I mean, we like what we like. Everyone likes different stuff.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like what you like. I am not here to yuck your yum.
Yep.
Yum away.
That's my job. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
This was a yum, but it wasn't a yum.
So this was fun, but we tend to like games, but we try to be critical in here as much as we can be, so everyone gets a full feel for what's good and maybe not as good about a game. So hopefully we do an okay job of that.
You can't buy every game. We tried, didn't work.
We really tried.
Really.
If you see our collection video, you know. But I don't know what's up next for us, but let us know what you think of the games we discussed in this video. If you've played them or if you have any questions about them, we can answer your questions and try to be as objective as we can so you can get a feel for, maybe you're considering buying one of these. Yeah.
So. All right. Well, let us know if you've played these. I think you just said that. I'm sorry. I think
That's
I'm
right.
tired. It's Sunday of a 3-day weekend, and so my brain is just melted.
All right.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And remember,
Every day that you game
is a holiday.